Animals are amazing. A hungry cat showed up at my shop today. I went to the store with a shopping list for fish. When I walked in, the shopkeeper did something truly astonishing. I invite you to check out this story with us. Joe knew most of the customers who came to his store, but when a strange customer walked in with a shopping list, he was understandably shocked. Some customers left, but many had been buying fish from his family since childhood. However, this regular visitor was a bit different. Every day, a cat would come to the window and sit outside, watching. Sometimes, it even entered the store. The first time it entered, one of the customers chased it away, but the cat kept coming back. Even though it would leave quickly when someone approached, it seemed content, just watching people go about their transactions. Joe didn't know why, but the cat didn't bother anyone and never tried to steal a fish. It just allowed its presence. Joe loved animals, especially cats, so having a cat make visits to his store was great. But what happened next was even more special. One day, the cat entered with a shopping list in its mouth. This time, it came and sat on the counter, placing the list there, eagerly waiting. At first, Joe was busy with other customers, but soon, it all made sense. The fish vendor did something incredible. Joe realized the cat was bringing the shopping list because it had observed customers handing over a list in exchange for fish. Joe had two options: treat the cat as a paying customer or shoo it away. What he did was astonishing. Joe decided not to turn away any paying customer, even if they were paying with a list. He gave the cat a beautiful piece of fish in exchange for the list. The cat grabbed the fish and ran, and Joe could only hope that the other customers didn't realize they could pay with a list too. Once the cat understood it could exchange a shopping list for fish, it became a regular customer. Every day, it brought its shopping list to the fishmonger and picked up a little fish or a piece of fish for dinner. Soon, they started calling it Sushi, and everyone in the store adopted him. They even placed a bowl of fresh water for him outside. All the store employees knew the cat and welcomed him as part of the team. Joe got used to setting aside a little fish for his new friend. But one day, something terrible happened. It was a busy day in the store, with many customers coming and going. However, the cat didn't show up to get its food. Joe had been working since early in the morning, and all he wanted was to go to his house next to the store and rest for a while. But Joe's concern for the cat overshadowed his fatigue. He couldn't rest until he was sure that Sushi was okay. But where could Sushi be? First, Joe looked around the store and then in the park across the road. Then, he got into his car and drove around the neighborhood. The cat couldn't be too far away since it came to the store every day. Joe hoped to find it running around so he could relax and finally head home. However, he found something entirely different when he turned the corner. His gaze caught something on the side of the road. It was the familiar body of Sushi, the tabby cat. But Sushi wasn't moving. He was curled up in a ball, and it seemed like a miracle that Joe had spotted him. He looked so small and vulnerable. Joe pulled over to the side of the road and got out of the car. It was definitely Sushi, but his body was bloody. For a moment, Joe's heart skipped a beat as he checked to see if the cat was breathing. Sushi then turned his head and looked at Joe. His eyes seemed to plead for help. Sushi had always been full of life, and his eyes used to sparkle with mischief. Now they were filled with pain. It seemed like a car had hit the cat, and he had somehow mustered enough strength to crawl off the road. Joe picked him up and wrapped him in his jacket, carrying him back to the car. Joe searched the internet and found a veterinarian in the next town. When Joe called them, he got their voicemail. They were closed. Joe rested his head on the steering wheel and almost cried. He didn't know how to help the cat he considered a friend. Finally, the veterinarian's voicemail directed him to an emergency service. Joe waited anxiously, and as soon as the service answered, he drove to the town. He was afraid of encountering traffic that might delay him, and Sushi's breathing was erratic, making him hold his breath. He didn't know if he would make it in time. Fortunately, Joe managed to reach the veterinarian. He was relieved to see other people who took Sushi from him and examined his injuries. The poor cat was in a lot of pain. He had a nasty wound, had lost a lot of blood, and had broken ribs, one of which had punctured a lung. That's why he was struggling to breathe. They had to perform emergency surgery to help him. Sushi made it through the procedure, but he was still fighting. The veterinarian informed Joe that Sushi had to go home, and if he survived the night, he would have a chance. They couldn't make any promises since the cat was very ill. The next day, Joe had to open his store, so he left his employee in charge and went to check on Sushi's condition. At the veterinarian's office, Sushi was still alive but relied on oxygen and had tubes connected to him. He looked so sad, but at least he was alive. Over time, he improved and even started to get excited when Joe visited him. It was amazing when they told Joe that Sushi could start eating solid food again. Joe brought him small pieces of fish, cut into tiny bits, so the cat could enjoy it. This brought a lot of joy to Joe to see how much Sushi liked the fish. Finally, the time came when Sushi was ready to go home. However, there was a problem: Sushi didn't have a home. They searched for his family everywhere, but no one showed up. This meant the cat had nowhere to go. They didn't want to let him go back to the street, so they took him to a shelter. What happened next is truly heartwarming. On the day Sushi was scheduled to be released, Joe came to pick him up. He wouldn't allow the cat to go to a shelter. Joe adopted Sushi and took him home. He set up an entire section for the cat, complete with a scratching post, a cat bed, and a litter box. But the best part was that he bought many toys for Sushi, including 2 favorites, 2 plush fish, and a feather. Since then, Sushi had a happy home with Joe. He had all the fish he could eat, and often hung out with the friends at the fish market before returning to his cozy bed. A customer had become family. Thank you for watching, and join us again for more great stories.